Welcome to the More Gems Show. I'm your host, Steve Moriarty, and with me tonight are my two sons, Michael, who's doing the production, and he's really doing a great job, and also my oldest son, Jeffrey, who will be our chat moderator tonight. Hello, boys.
Hello. Hello, everybody.
So I've been a world traveler for about 40 years now, and my two sons are starting to follow in my footsteps. Jeffrey has been a major traveler. He's been definitely more countries than I have. I pick countries that are gem rich. And what do you pick countries for, Jeff?
I think it used to be, I know in the beginning anyway, it used to be the countries that would get my wife upset or that she would cry about, but I've broke her down so much that just doesn't happen anymore. So.
Yes, I know you'd call and say, yeah, Amy's been crying, but you get into some places where it's very difficult, and travel is difficult. Yeah. You go into some remote areas, and I know you've been in China where nobody spoke English, and you had difficult time communicating because Chinese is a very difficult language. So where else have you been?
Well, we're on, I think, country 37. I'm not counting though. Last trip was 2 months ago, right before all this happened with COVID, but was down to Guatemala. So it was a short, quick flight. Spirit actually flies down there, remarkably. Since I was younger, wanting to see the ruins of Tikal. So that's out in the jungle of Guatemala, and
I think the first time you wanted to go to Guatemala, we stopped you.
Yes,
and shortly after, I think maybe 40 people were killed down there or something.
Yeah, I think it was about like 10 years ago. We were about ready to go, and then U.S. put, I think, some kind of advisory on it, and just because a lot of people were getting kidnapped out there. So
not that advisories have stopped you, but.
No.
But I understand.
Yeah.
The need to travel is definitely a need for many. My other son, Michael, it hasn't been his need up to now, but now he started traveling more. We all have fears of flying, and, sometimes it takes a while to get over that. Sometimes we don't get over it. I've never had a fear of flying. I know Jeff doesn't particularly like to fly, but he'll fly to get somewhere he needs to get because we have that need to travel. My need to travel is to find gems. Jeff is more architectural and antiquities and that type of thing, but we'll try and sway him to the gem side. And hopefully our next trip, hopefully the two boys can go to Tanzania with me is what we had planned. We had a trip planned for last November, but some things came up. We couldn't go, and actually worked out for the better because Tanzania changed the laws and was throwing people in jail for things I've been doing there for years, and that's buying on the streets. And now you can no longer do that there. You have to buy in government offices, and I know a few people that have been in jail. So travel can be risky. Anything else you want to say about your travels, Jeff?
I'm waiting to do it again. Yeah. Like you said, it's when you got that bug, it's waiting for all those countries to open up, and when it's a little bit safer, I'll be back on the plane again.
Okay, cool. So tonight we're dealing with some of the more unusual stones we have, some unusual colors or just unusual gems, and we're going to start with an Ammonite. So if you want to make a purchase of any of these stones, you just go to MoreGems.com, and at the top of the screen there's a green banner. Click on that and it'll show you all the stones, and you can make a purchase either with PayPal or credit card. We have financing available on the site, and you can also do layaway, but you'd have to call tomorrow and set up a layaway. We require 20% down, and you can have up to 6 months to pay off your stones. So we try to make it easy for you to own a great stone. So our first stone is an Ammolite. It's a fossilized ammonite. This material comes from Canada. It's the Bear Claw Formation. This particular stone weighs 19.22 carats. So this is actually a fossil. I'll show you. I can't. Well, I guess I'll have to show you here. So this is an Ammonite. You know, the ones from the bear claw form or bear paw formation are between 70 and 80 million years old. What was off there, Mike? And you can see the iridescence here. You know, this material from Madagascar is not the quality that you get from Canada. You know, the top of this shell looks just like this. You know, and you'll see full shells, 4 foot, 5 foot across. You know, that can be $100,000. But that covering that's on there is just like pearl. It's aragonite, and it just forms a thin layer typically on top. They can be as thick as this whole piece, and what's underneath is just the rest of the shell. You can see that there's a layer on top on here, and that's where the color is. So this iridescence, really a beautiful piece. This is a really clean piece because typically they're all cracked up, and but this surface is very clean and just a great iridescence to it. So it's $450 piece. And with the coupon code GEMSHOW4, you're going to get 15% off that tonight. So this is mainly for pendants, really not a good ring stone, but makes a beautiful pendant, you know, and I don't know if you can see the size of it, but, you know, a nice size and just really a beautiful piece. Next up is a Sunstone. This is also from our last trip up to the Oregon Sunstone mines. This comes from the Sunstone Butte mine. And this is a really unusual piece because up to the time I cut this, which, you know, you have to forgive the iPhone, doesn't do color well or show stones that well. This is more accurate, what you're going to see. A little bit of inclusion there, but typical of this material, because this material usually is just full of copper platelets. Schiller is what it's called, and that's what Sunstone is best known for, Schiller. I'm looking for stones without Schiller, just because they facet better. That, you know, as soon as you put the Schiller in it just ruins the brilliance of the stone. So this is pretty much Schiller-free Sunstone, and a really unusual bicolor. Like I said, this is the first time I'd ever seen it. I've seen a couple of stones since. The material is much better what's coming out of the Sunstone Butte mine. Sunstone Butte is only produced for maybe the last 5 or 6 years. Was a recent discovery and just producing some really incredible sunstones. This particular stone is $1,920, weighs 6 carat 38, and again 15% off that for this really rare sunstone. This is a piece of rough of the sunstone. See if I can show you the colors that are in it. These are really strongly dichroic. I mean, one direction it's green. It's kind of hard to see it, but see if I can get it. So you can see the green in it, and over here it's kind of red. Generally makes it more difficult to cut. So these are very difficult to cut sunstone, I've found. Getting the color right, particularly these with the mixed red and green, is difficult because when they mix, they can often just be a muddy greenish red stone that's not very attractive. But if you hit it right, it's really an interesting stone like this bicolor, or you can get straight orange and straight greens out of this material that comes from Oregon. Our next stone. Oh,
Hey.
we have a stone that's sold already.
Yes.
And what is that, Jeff?
You got a 50% chance at getting
Well, because of the timing, I'm going to say it's the Ammonite.
correct.
All right.
Yes.
Cool.
Beautiful
You'll love
piece.
the stone. It's really beautiful material. When I was on the road, I've been at this for 40 years, maybe 45 now. I started in 1975. I traveled on the road selling to jewelers around the U.S., and I did represent the biggest company selling ammonites, which was chlorite. They were the biggest miners of this material at the time, and so I carried a full line of the ammonites. This material, again, is about 70 million years old is what that formation is. So it's really cool stuff, and finding a stone with color like this and such a even, uncracked surface is rare. So congratulations and thank you. Next up is a really nice spinel. These spinels coming out of Mahenge in Tanzania have been just extremely popular, and spinel has risen to a point of almost being priced like sapphires and rubies. Very valuable stones. In the past, they were confused with sapphire and rubies. Many of you probably have heard this, but one of the crown jewels, name has slipped me now, but maybe I'll remember it. But it's the Black Prince ruby. Maybe I think that's correct. Correct me if I'm wrong, but they long believed that it was a ruby. And maybe in the 50s, don't quote me on the date, but they found out it actually was a spinel. They have such a similar coloration and a similar beauty. They're very hard. They're mined from the same mines that we get rubies out of. So this is just a very popular stone and has become very valuable. As you can see, it's an expensive stone. But compared to a sapphire of this color, it's still less expensive than the sapphire. But this is just a really rare color to find spinel, such an intense color. So this is a wax that we produce here. This particular mounting has 3 marquee diamonds on the back side here, and it's a bezel set. This wasn't built for this stone, but it probably would fit it, and if it doesn't, we make it to fit. So these waxes are produced by this machine back here. This is B9 Creations. It's a rapid prototype machine. Is that correct, Chris? Right name? Okay, rapid prototyping. So this particular machine can produce this wax, and we're going to produce one tonight, in 20 minutes or so. I mean, it can produce in 15 minutes, 25 minutes, depending on the quality you want. So we're going to produce a wax tonight. And we're started. So when it's done, we'll get it out of there and we'll show you. I think Chris designed a piece. Chris is our designer under Christopher Michael Designs, and he's designed a piece for an opal that we're going to show you later in the show. So this spinel, what's outstanding about it is not only its clarity. It's a good sized stone, and it's very clean and just very bright. The intensity of the color is what's special about it. Getting stones of this intensity, and as you'll see in the actual video, it's even more intense than what you're seeing on this. But really a beautiful, beautiful stone. $49.50 is the price. It's a 2-carat 47, and with our coupon code of GEMSHOW4, you're going to get 15% off that. So this will make a very striking ring or pendant, particularly a ring, just a beautiful stone for a ring. Just look how clean and bright it is. It's a really a special stone. Comes from Mahenge in Tanzania. And one more Spinel, a little smaller, but again, just intense color. Getting them this kind of color. Even if you look for sapphires this color, they do exist, but very, very difficult. I think we showed one last week with the kind of intensity this has. But just a special, special color, just really a bright, clean stone. See if I can get it in here. When I traveled on the road, I sold to jewelers for the first 20 years in my business. This is exactly what I did. I'd have mountings, and we'd just play with stones and put together pieces. It looks a little bright there, Michael. There. So this wax, if you look at it, all these little prongs on here, like there's a diamond, there's a diamond, there's a diamond. And there's diamonds on the side of this piece, if I can get it in focus. So this is set with diamonds across these bars, so just really nice design by Christopher Michael. And we can make any of these pieces, any size stone, we can make any variations to them. But just a nice piece with this Spinel. This Spinel, a lot less expensive because it's a smaller stone, but similar color to the previous one. $14.90 is the price, and 15% off for Gem Show 4. The appraised price on this, which I'll discuss appraised price for you, is $39.60. Now, when we appraise stones, our appraisals are based on this gem guide. Gem Guide is used in the trade for appraisals, for understanding pricing of stones, and it's produced by Richard Drucker. And this is a market-driven, independent pricing guide. And what they do is go around to the trade shows and go to all the wholesalers and find out what things are actually selling for at the shows. And then they produce this guide, which breaks down stones. It does give us prices on diamonds as well as color, but what's important to us is color. And they break it down into different stone sizes and different qualities and give you a wholesale price. And this is what we base our pricing on. So the more expensive price on this is based on that gem guide. And then our price of $14.90 is our price. We are generally well priced compared to the pricing guide because I do travel to the sources. We do cut our own stones, so we pretty much cut middlemen out, and we try and be very competitively priced because we deal online worldwide. We ship around the world, and to do that, you have to be competitive and have great stones because this is really, really a great Spinel. Here's another setting that works for this. This is just little bezel diamonds down the shank. Just a simple, attractive piece. And because we're making the mountings, we can do any metal. We can do 14 karat and white, rose, yellow, 18 karat, platinum, palladium white, is any metal. So you send us a picture or see what we have online, and we can do a piece for you like it.
Hey, Steve.
Oh, we have a question. Yeah.
Yeah, this came through Facebook Messenger. With some of the stones tonight, the gentleman wants to know if he ordered, can he get it by Mother's Day?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, it's always a little risky with shipping, but we've had very good luck. We would ship tomorrow, should be there Friday. So depending where you're at, sometimes it's 2-day. So I don't guarantee anything because once it's out of our hands, it's in the hands of the delivering service. But we have had very good luck with things arriving on time. So take the chance and we'll do our best to get it to you.
Okay. And also for everyone else out there right now, if you do have questions, you can post them on our YouTube chat.
Oh, I forgot to mention that.
Yes. You can post them on YouTube chat. You got to be logged in to see the chat. There's a lot of chatter going on right now. So if you log in with your Gmail account, you can see it there. You can contact us through Facebook Messenger, or we're going live on Facebook as well at Moriarty's Gem Arts, and you can post in the comments with any questions.
Okay, thanks. Okay. Next stone. Okay, this is an opal. It's really a beautiful opal and an unusual stone. This would be considered black. I mean, it's mostly brown, but any stone that's gray or darker base color in Australia is considered black. This is from Ethiopia. Most stones from Ethiopia are hydrophane. These are very low hydrophane quality. Maybe you wouldn't consider them hydrophane. I don't know if you left them in water, whether they'd soak up water, which is what hydrophane means. Hydrophane is they like water. And most Ethiopian opal is strongly hydrophane. They have different varying amounts of how quick they'll absorb. But this particular material barely absorbs water. The hydrophane characteristic is something that is generally good because the hydrophane opals don't tend to craze, and I assume that this won't have that issue either, even though it's very low hydrophane character. I haven't seen Ethiopian opals have an issue with crazing. You know, this really has beautiful colors. You know, the reason blacks are generally more valuable is because the darker background color will make the colors stand out and much more dramatically. Because you'll see the lighter color Ethiopian opals, sometimes they put a black backing on them, and it creates a much more intense color. Sometimes it tends to make the body color a little blue on the white Ethiopian opals, but painting the back black will generally darken, but it will have no effect on this stone. It's already black. The colors are intense, and it's just really a beautiful stone. And as you can see, it has so many different colors in it and color throughout the stone. So it's really a dramatic piece. Black opal is the highest valued of opal, particularly in Australia. You'll see opals that are $100,000 and even more. You know, just really a great material. This particular stone is almost crystal. I mean, if you put a light to the back of it, you can see through it. But really a beauty, which I could show you that. So, you know, it's clear, but doesn't show the clear. Some of the Ethiopian opals that we facet are very transparent, you know, but this one doesn't. Unless you put the light to the back, you can't see through it. But the color's just very dramatic on this stone. Weighs 13 karat, 27, 39.80 is the price. Appraised value on this is $6,635 and 15 off with Gem Show 2. So a really special opal. If you look at black opals, they are very, very expensive, and the material from Ethiopia is much less expensive.
Gemstone 4, Steve.
Gemstone 4 is the coupon code. Was I in last week?
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago, okay. Gem Show 4 is our coupon code if you want to get that 15% off. Thank you, Jeff. So here's a piece of rough that probably is going to produce a similar type stone, similar body color. You know, this is material kind of blown out there, but really, really bright. You know, and this is a good piece of rough. This piece of rough is actually available on mineralmike.com. And this is something that you can make money on. It's something I probably should cut, but my son's business is mineral specimens and some opal rough, so I don't want to take all the good stuff away, although I have taken a few. But this is a great piece, and I think it's only $150 and weighs 13 carats or so. 14, over 14 carats. So this is something somebody that's a cutter might consider before I take it. Yeah, cool piece. And the next stone up. Really? I'm out of order. Okay. This is a Heliodor. Heliodor is golden beryl. Beryl is related to emerald and aqua. This is the yellow form of that mineral. Heliodor means gift of the sun. And the yellow color, of course, is why. And really a beautiful cut, if I say so myself. Just a Barian-style pavilion step-cut crown. Unusual shape. And just came out very nice. This material is good for rings or pendants because it's very hard. Good bright material. I do have a pendant here. There it is. Okay. This is an example of a pendant. It really doesn't fit it, but we can easily make it fit. This was done for a smaller shield shape. So, whoop. So if that kind of give you an idea. So these are diamond or other colored stones we can put in there, mix, whatever. Just make a really nice pendant. And we would probably make this more angular for this type of shape stone. Or we can make it into whatever you want. So this Heliodor weighs 5.7 carats. And I think this one's from Nigeria. Yeah, this is from Nigeria. Not sure on the treatment of this. Some are irradiated, some are natural. The irradiated material, they take a more colorless material that comes from aqua mines and irradiate it, and it enhances the color. But a lot of times you just don't know what the treatments are. You have to know the supplier or the mine it came from. You have to buy it from the mine to really know, because some of this material like this, you can't really send it to the labs. I still believe that there's no identification for it. But certain mines that have been what's been treated, like Tajikistan, most of it's been treated. Yeah, there are varying reports on that. So just not sure on Heliodors what the nature of the color is, but it's something that it generally is done and is accepted as such. Many stones are heat treated, some are radiated. Here's a big crystal. This is pretty amazing piece. This is the crystal shape for Heliodors, aquas, emeralds, all come this same hexagonal shape. But this is a really beautiful crystal that weighs almost 100 carats. Would probably cut a 50 to 60 carat stone. You can see the kind of size it has. This is something I probably won't cut. Typically, in the past, mineral specimens like this were cheap in comparison to cut stones. So as a cutter, we'd go around. I say we. I had a friend that he died several years ago, Chris Remen, great cutter and just a good friend. And we go around to shows and look at all the mineral specimens and buy mineral specimens. And it didn't take me long to learn not to tell him I was a cutter, because mineral collectors, like my son, They just hate when you take a beautiful crystal and cut it up, But in the past, the mineral specimens were cheap. So that would be one of the main places you'd be looking, these mineral dealers, for a good specimen to cut up. Like this stone, you're going to cut a 50 carat stone that's worth $5,000. And from the mineral dealers, you could buy it cheap because minerals weren't worth much then. But everything's changed now. Mineral specimens are often worth much more than what you can get for the cut stones. It just depends on how available they are, because getting a good specimen like this with a good crystal shape is just very difficult. So for some time, I won't cut this stone, but it's always tempting because this would be a beauty and would just be lovely as a cut stone. And we have a question.
Couple questions.
Okay.
First one's probably pretty quick. A little bit ago, you brought up your gem guide pricing book. They want to know if, Big Time Zerg Rush wants to know if there's a PDF version available. You being the techie person that you are, I'm sure you know.
Meaning?
Like online version?
Well, there is online version, but you have to be in the trade and you have to prove it. They only sell to people in the trade. If you're in the trade, it's a very reasonable thing to buy. Quite inexpensive for all the information you get out of it. If you're in the trade, you should own it. Not only does it give you pricing information, they have articles on stones, on things that are at shows that are ahead of their time, and really give you some great information as well as pricing of stones, which is so important if you're in the trade, because it's hard to keep up on prices. You can be behind on prices, you can be over. If you're buying stones, it gives you some place to look to make sure that you're not overpaying. So I recommend it highly for those in the trade. And it is available online or as a hardcover or both.
All right. One last question. Let's see. Mary wanted to know when you got a piece of rough and you're not taking other people's specimens, what cut would you be best for that stone? I mean, do you look at it, know that you're going to cut it, or do you pretty much start cutting and end up with, a shape that just fits it?
Both. I mean, this stone, it's pretty obvious what it's going to be. It's a long emerald cut. Long emerald cut, you're going to get 60% out of it possibly, just because of the shape of that material. So there are other versions. I mean, an opposed bar in that particular color of material would be a good choice. You're going to lose a little extra weight, so you're not going to get a 50 carat, you're going to get a 40 carat out of it. But maybe worth the sacrifice to get a more interesting stone, because long emerald cuts are interesting, but something with a little more brilliance that an opposed bar would give you would be probably more valuable. Or you could do a long cut that has, instead of one long facet all the way down the back, you split it in two, you get a little more brilliance out of it. I've had a stone in a previous show that was cut like that, and it does add some interest to it, but you lose weight to do that. Other stones, you start cutting and then you decide what to cut, but that stone being flawless and obvious shape, you don't have a lot of options. You have all options, but if you want to make money, you cut to the shape of the stone. Was there another question?
Nope.
Oh, okay. Okay. So this stone, $690. Not a lot for a great stone, and 15% off with the Gem Show 4 on that. And the appraised value on that stone was $1,220. So a really bright stone, good color. Just make a really lovely pendant, or you can put it in a ring, and it's not too big for a ring, so you really a unique piece. Next up. is a Tanzanite. This is a really, really nice Tanzanite because unusual, it is mostly blue. There is some violet to it, but you get it in daylight and it's mostly all blue. This is pretty much what you're going to see out of it. This is a stone I cut, I think a little much, no, it's a different cut. No name for it, but step cut crown and kind of a, not sure what to call the back, but it worked. Cut a beautiful stone, beautiful blue color. You know, only recently have I seen so many stones with more blue to them. Blue is not typical. I mean, these stones do a color shift. So in daylight, all tanzanites will turn more blue, and in incandescent, they're going to be more violet. This stone is not going to show a lot of violet. It's just going to be more blue. There is always a little violet to them. So here's an unusual mounting. We've done this for tanzanites. I think this one may have been set up for a cushion, but it works. And those are all diamonds that are around it. Just kind of does a swirl around the piece. So cool piece, cool stone. This stone, appraised value on it is $1,270. Nope, wrong stone. We would love it to be $1,270. This stone, $5,150. That's better. But our price, $2,950, and 15% off with the coupon code GEMSHOW4. This stone has a overall quality rating of 931. So I do rate stones on a 0 to 1,000 rating system. It is my system I've developed recently with the help of an engineer that helped me out a lot when he was investing stones on coming up with this system. And Tanzanite was really the reason we developed it, because Tanzanite, as well as many other stones, they look different in daylight than they do in incandescent light. So what light do you grade in? Most people use daylight as a grading system, but it really leaves out some of the beauty that you see in incandescent. Some stones, like pink tourmalines, will look much better in daylight than they look in incandescent light. And many, many stones vary in color, and Tanzanite varies dramatically. It will be much more blue typically in daylight, much more violet in incandescent, and some of the Tanzanites will change completely from blue to violet, a complete color change, much like Alexandrite does. Alexandrite's a stone that can change from red to green when you go from incandescent to daylight. So with our grading system, I felt it necessary to actually grade in two different lights. And when you look at your stones, when you get them, you need to look in different lights, because you may get a stone and look at it and go, yeah, it's kind of pretty. But then you go to daylight and you see the real beauty, because some stones are just so beautiful in daylight and they're kind of pretty in incandescent. Tanzanite is pretty much pretty in both lights, but you'll find that the blue tanzanites, like this one, will be very blue in daylight, and many of them are probably prettier in daylight, the blue ones, than they are in incandescent. Without that purple that comes up in incandescent light, they're not as strongly blue in incandescent. A long description here, but the blues generally look better in daylight than they do in incandescent. And the blue-purple tanzanites, they have a different character in each light. But this one is actually beautiful in both lights. A little too far there. But anyway, a viewer question wanted me to explain what I just said, probably.
Oh, Steve. First of all, I'm gonna call out Lauren. She got a gorgeous tanzanite necklace from us. So I'm just saying, here's a nice stone for a ring, because you're looking for one to match. So calling out Lauren. Next, we got a couple questions that seem to seem they're kind of relatable. So I'm going to ask you them all at once. First of all, do you lose more weight trying to cut one stone into several small stones versus making one stone just a very large one? And answer that one first.
Dramatic difference. Like if I cut this stone into two pieces, instead of getting a 50 to 60 carat stone, I would probably get 40 carats total weight. Take this and make a match pair, the weight loss would be great. You'd have to charge much more for it. I mean, you're going to lose 25, 30% more weight cut into. That may be a little overestimate, but it is a dramatic difference when you try and cut more stones. You always cut one big one. It's worth more. Generally, bigger stones are worth more per carat. And you'll get more carats out of them. Sometimes there'll be an inclusion that you need to slice them and cut more than one stone, but if it's clean, you cut one stone out of it.
All right. A few more questions rolled in while you were giving us that explanation. Is there one metal that's better to set Tanzanite in?
No. They all look good. I mean, rose gold looks great, yellow gold looks great, white gold being more popular. We do more white gold now, platinum, of course, white metal. So there's no real preference. You know, in general, over the years, when we look at sapphire, they've typically been preferable in white metal, but Tanzanite going blue to purple, you know, purple often looks better in yellow metals. So it's really good in any metal. It's really a personal preference thing as far as the metals. Some stones do look better in particular metals. You know, you get peach-colored stones, and if they don't have a really good intensity and you put them in yellow metal, they can tend to be masked by the yellow. Although sometimes light peach stones or light yellow stones are put into yellow metals just to make them look more yellow, you know. So it can have an effect on stones, but in the case of Tanzanite, pretty much you choose the metal that you like best, and it'll look good in it.
Okay. And back to the whole cutting question. We get this type of question during the shows, but as far as a faceting machine, is there one, you know, especially for all the gem cutters out there, that you would recommend using?
Currently, yes, because I'm just buying one. My machines, the problem I have with it, I love both the machines I have, but they're no longer manufactured. And that's a real issue when you have you need a part. You know, I recently needed a part for my facet, and I had to let a cutter go because the machine wasn't working, couldn't find the part. And it took probably 6 months before I found somebody that had a part in their stock that they'd put away because they knew that the company was going out of business and there'd be no parts. So you want to buy a piece of equipment from a company that's been around and is likely going to be around for a long time. So my current recommendation is Ultratech. They've been around 50 years. They're a company that's just not a one or two man shop. They are a company that produces high quality scientific equipment and has the equipment to produce a very high quality machine. And it's very important that even a new cutter gets a quality piece of equipment. I've been through machines that I thought were good. My first machines I bought were horrible. They were just made incorrectly. I cut on them, not knowing anything about machining, assuming that my problems were my problems when they turned out to be a problem with the machine. So when you're buying a machine, buying used equipment or cheap piece of equipment because it's what you can afford is not the way to go. You've got to buy a high quality piece of equipment, and the first stone you cut can probably be a beautiful stone, and you won't have the frustration that I've ran through with poor pieces of equipment. Ultratech is the piece of equipment I've chosen. My son wants to learn, and I think it's the right piece of equipment to choose. It is not inexpensive. And many of you think it is an expensive piece of equipment, but it is the thing to buy because it's going to cut a great stone for you. It's going to cut your time in half from what other machines might be. And if you want to be in this business or you want to cut great stones, you have to spend the money. And fortunately, they've produced a lesser expensive piece of equipment and the same type of quality. They just knew that they were losing some business because only professionals, felt they could afford the $5,000 for a machine. So now they've produced another machine that's $3,500. And if you really have aspirations of being a quality cutter, find the money and buy a good piece of equipment. And Ultratech is my current recommendation. We'll be doing a review when I get the machine, probably in 4 weeks or so, and be doing some cutting videos on the machine. And we'll show you how it works, and that's my current recommendation.
All right.
That's
Good
it?
answer.
Okay. Well, I've done a lot of research on it, and I know many cutters that have used it. I've never used the machine, but I've known so many cutters that do high quality cutting, and their recommendations, and I've just finally decided that that's the machine for me.
I seem to get that question a lot. So
Yeah. Well, it's something that is difficult for a cutter, and particularly when they look at what the prices of machines are. The last one I bought was about $6,000, and it was so worth the money. But unfortunately, it's the facette, and they're not making them anymore. So it's a problem if you've got a piece of equipment you can't buy parts for, because eventually you're going to need a part. Unless you're a machinist, you're just not going to be able to get the part, and it's going to be a useless machine. So Ultratech has been there and is going to be there, and it's what you need to do. You need to bite the bullet and just buy something quality, or just don't get involved in faceting.
all right.
Okay.
And speaking of quality, one more question. Tanzanite, we seem to get a lot of questions whenever a Tanzanite stone pops up. So this one, Veronica wants to know, is Tanzanite okay to wear every day in a ring?
It depends on you. I mean, what you're going to do to a Tanzanite is scratch the surface. You're not going to do major damage to it typically. Over time, the surface will scratch. I mean, I got people that want to wear them as engagement rings, and we make them up for them. And I just tell them that, probably over the next 5 or 10 years, you're going to have to refinish the stone. Weight loss is minimal on refinishing. It's just not the hardest stone on the planet. Even sapphire, over time you have to repair surface scratches and chips, so it's just something you have to realize. Wear it carefully, watch what you do. I mean, don't work on the car, and don't clean the house with it, and don't think that it is impervious to damage, because it's not. But the damage you do is repairable. And if I had to recut the stone pictured there, it would go from a 4 carat 75 to a 4.5 carat, and you'd get a refinished stone. So be careful, but don't avoid doing it in a ring.
Thank you.
That's it?
Yep.
Okay. Next stones, cool stones. These are moonstones. They're feldspars. These are cat's eyes, so they have a little bluish tint, and as you can see, the eye moves with the light, and when you get over to the light to the side, you get what's called milk and honey effect. This comes from the cat's eye crystal barrels, which are more honey colored, and they'll produce this effect, where in this stone it's more white. In the crystal barrel it's honey, so we know it is milk and honey effect. But these have really good eyes. They're clean stones. In daylight that eye will just be dead on. So it's cool material. These are stones you could do ring and pendant, or ring and earrings, or ring and pendant. It's another stone, not real hard, that maybe someday you'll have to repolish the surface if you want to wear it a lot. So in regards to, if you're going to do a ring and you want to wear it often and the stone's not extremely hard, you're probably better off with a piece like this where it's prong set. Easier to get out to do that polishing. When you set stones in a bezel, when you pull a bezel back, it's difficult to redo the bezel. Sometimes you have to rebuild the bezel. Ends up an expensive project. So softer stones you want to wear in rings, definitely better to do a prong setting. So this is a halo of diamonds around. Wasn't made for this stone, but it's pretty close to the right size. So each of those prongs that go around it, this is all diamonds, or what looks particularly nice with these. Here's a diamond, or it can be sapphires. We made one for my son's fiance that had sapphires around it, and this color with blue sapphires is really, really a good look. So this ring, this is a solid piece underneath. You can open that up or keep it solid. So again, pendant and earrings, or ring and earrings, nice stones. These come from Sri Lanka. The cat's eye moonstones, the 3 equal 18.16 carat, $785 on the set, and 15% off with the coupon code GEMSHOW4. And what's our next stone there, Michael, is a really unusual, rare stone. This is a Tanzanite, probably more properly known as a fancy color zoisite, but these come from the Tanzanite mines. These kind of colors, up till about 2014, exceedingly rare. I mean, almost non-existent. In 2014, I was in Tanzania, and I bought a parcel that I was just ecstatic about, because it had some pinks and peach colors, and colors that to that time I had not owned. The pinks were stones that were bringing $4,000 a carat, $5,000 a carat, just huge money from collectors because they were so rare. So I thought I'd struck the mother lode, and it comes out that they had hit quite a bit of material at that time, but things have changed again. This happens where you hit material, and as quickly as it's found, it's gone, and it's kind of where the situation has gone now. It was very available, and now not so available, and probably headed to not available again. That's just how this business works. I'll show you a mounting for this. So this is a peach color. What we used to find, they were so rare that the cutting was generally very poor on them. The clarity was typically low, because they would take anything and try and cut it, because the rarity was so great that anything you cut was worth high value. So these are still valuable. And will likely in the near future be much more valuable again, unless they hit more material. But it's so rare that they hit these fancy colors, and they just hit a seam that just produced a lot of fancy colors. And that's the time to buy, because the price drops, and like most things, very short-lived, and you buy it, and within a few years the price can double, triple. In the case of this material, it was 4 or 5 times what it is currently. So this is a really clean stone and just well cut and just a bright stone. Very inexpensive at $890. It's really in a similar price range to what normal Tanzanite is, and the rarity is still, even with more material being there, is 100 times or 1,000 times greater than what Tanzanite is. And they say Tanzanite's 1,000 times rarer than diamond, so it puts it into a pretty rare category for collectors. Really pretty peach color. Peach has always been my favorite. If you go online and you look for, often you'll be asked what for a reference to your password, and they ask for a color, and peach has always been mine because peach is my favorite. Peach. Sorry, rambling on here.
About to get hacked.
I don't use that anymore.
Password
But
is,
anyway,
password is Tanzanite.
Peach is a great color. Peach and sapphire is the rarest color. Podparasha is the color that would be similar to this and brings very high money. Some garnets are this color, and of course the zircon, like the piece I'm wearing now, the Imperial Zircon, is a just very desirable color. So this is really a beautiful stone, and at $890, it's cheap for what it's been in the past, and what it'll be in the future. And with the coupon code GEMSHOWED4, you're going to get another 15% off that. So it's really a special stone that you'll have a hard time finding anywhere else. Next up is a Morganite. Morganite is a peach beryl, like emerald, aqua, yellow beryl, heliodor. All the same stone. This is the peach form. This particular stone, for a very short period, came out of Ethiopia. The Ethiopian supply was only about a year ago that we bought this material, and then trouble started in the south, fighting between tribes, and the material is currently not available. This material, although I don't know for sure, I believe that it is all natural color. Because it was such a short supply. I haven't seen it from the labs, haven't sent it to the labs, but because of where it came from, my assumption is it's all natural color. Most of the material from Mozambique is irradiated to color and enhanced. Material from Nigeria, typically natural, and I believe this to be natural. Really beautiful color, big stone. And the cut helps us a lot. This is a square Barian style cut and just produces incredible brilliance. So a hard stone can be worn ring or pendant, pretty big ring, but we've made them this big. Wouldn't be unusual because this is a 33 carat. The price on it $38.90 and 15% off with Gems Show 4. I have an overall quality rating of 923 on this stone. Praise value $6,140. Really nice stone. Here's the rough material. This has the natural crystal shape. This surface is etched, typically from highly acidic fluids that came in after it formed. But nice crystal. Again, these are from Ethiopia. They found emerald in Ethiopia, which I've cut a few, which were really killer stones. And the unusual nature of that material is no treatments, which emerald is typically always enhanced by filling. But the stones I've cut from Ethiopia, because where they're from and the early time that you purchase material, typically these countries don't know how to treat the stuff to start with. That doesn't last long, and things get treated pretty quickly. But the material I bought that came direct from the mines, actually came from my opal dealers, has typically been untreated, and I assume that's the nature of this stone. But really, really nice material, and big stones for being natural, and just look at the brilliance of the stone. This will stand up for a long time, and as I've mentioned before, these are stones, when you own aquas and emeralds and morganites, as well as the beryl, they have a low refractive index. It's amazing that you can get brilliance out of them like this. But because refractive index, what determines brilliance, that's why diamond's so brilliant, because of high refractive index. So when you own these stones with lower refractive index, you have to work to keep them clean. As soon as they get coated with oils and any type of coating you get on the back from lotions and just skin oils, and you have to keep them clean because they'll lose their brilliance quickly. A diamond can hold its brilliance for a long time, but even when it finally gets so coated, it loses its brilliance also. So keep them clean, and they'll stay beautiful like this for years and years and years. Question?
Hey, Steve.
Or a comment about me.
Those haven't come in yet.
Okay.
Few questions. Okay, for this Morganite, because the question is on the millimeter size of the stone, can you show it against your finger? Or?
Sure. Well, maybe I'll have to show it in here. I don't know. Well, you can compare it to my ring. So big stone. It's not unusual for us to make rings this size. It just makes a big ring. You got to want a big ring, So.
All right. And for everybody looking at that picture, those are hand sanitizer hands. And Steve is patiently waiting for Indiana to open back up for a manicure. And probably some lotion on those hands.
I'm a gem cutter, too, and I work with a lot of abrasive equipment, so you have to forgive my hands. You ought to see my other son's hands that does gold work. You want to see some nasty-looking hands. Hey, Michael, you want to show us those hands?
Oh, those are terrible. Those are really bad.
Yeah. Our hands are not well taken care of in this business. We should have hand models.
I was a dishwasher back in the day, and man, were my hands just soft.
Yeah.
And
everybody's feeling the difficulty of all the hand sanitizer and all the washing, and these days, and hopefully we'll be over that soon.
Okay, a couple more questions. What was for the Morganites? Was there a name of that facet or the way that was cut?
This one. Well, it's similar to a Berrien style. Berrien is a style that was originally designed by Basil Watermeyer for diamond. His name was Basil. His wife's name was Marion, so an acronym Berrien. And I've cut thousands of them because they do produce a really nice brilliance, and most of them are some modification of that style of cutting. It's just a style that can be used and cut for many, many shapes. The Heliodor, you get that one on again, Mike. This is a Berrien style, so I can modify it for almost any shape. You can do ovals, rounds. It doesn't. You can do a Berrien round too, but it's similar to. It's just a brilliant style cut, I like them. When I was on the road selling, they called me Mr. Berrien because I did so many of them. It was new then, and I really had a great following for that style of cutting because it wasn't done up to that time. You got to realize when I got into it in the late 70s, colored stones were a minor part of the business, unlike now where it is mainstream. Back then I had to travel the U.S. to find jewelers that really had the interest in color and really could see the beauty in them. But all that's changed now, and everybody's into color. And rightfully so. It's, so much rarer, and many of these stones are exceedingly rare compared to diamond. And they have a beauty of diamond, and they have colors that you can't afford in diamond.
Thank you, Mr. Berrien.
Thanks.
One more question.
Basil Watermeyer might object to that, but yeah.
One question going back to that Tanzanite, the peach pink one.
Uh-huh.
Somebody wanted to know, based just the different colors, is it harder or softer than, or the same as regular blue purplish Tanzanite?
Same. Yeah, same mineral. It's identical. It's just the coloring agents are different in this material. What causes it, I'm not sure. They're so rare, you don't even see studies on the fancy colors, which would be interesting to see if GIA or one of the labs would really take a look at these. And maybe they have, but I haven't seen any information on it as just to what colors them and why they are different. But they're different, and they're beautiful stones, and I hope they continue to be available, but I really don't expect it. I've been at Tanzanite for so many years, and it's been so rare, these fancy colors, for all those years, that I expect that to be the norm.
Thank you.
Okay. Next stone, Michael, is a bicolor Tanzanite. You talk about rare. This is about as rare a thing as I've ever seen. I have never personally seen bicolor Tanzanites. I mean, blue and yellow are two of the colors that are in Tanzanite, but to see them both in the same stone face up is pretty unusual. I mean, this is literally the first stones I've owned. I've got one smaller and this stone. But that's my entire experience with this particular combination. Bicolors are rare in almost all stones, but in Tanzanite, this is a new one for me. So here's another ring that Chris has produced. And it sounds like our wax is done, and once we get to the stone that he created it for, we'll show you what that wax is. Let me see if I can get this. I say the iPhone is not the ideal camera for showing color, but you can see the color. And what we do in videos and pictures, I make every attempt to make them as accurate as possible. So what you can expect is what you see in the pictures and videos we have online. So a really unique stone. This weighs a carat 61, 1,050 is our price, and 15% off for Gem Show 4. All right, and next up is an Imperial Zircon. Imperial Zircon, that's what I'm currently wearing. Again, my favorite colors. This material comes from Tanzania. This stone is from the Tanga region. I've bought Imperial Zircon from Mozambique, from Singida, but the best is from Tanga. And unfortunately, my supplier, who over the last 10 or 12 years has given me many, many stones, very little supply now. I think I bought 2 stones from him, and I'll buy a dozen or 20 stones if he has great ones. Just this peach color is just a really desirable color, very saleable and reasonable compared to stones of this color. We call it Imperial Zircon because it has the color of Imperial Topaz. But an Imperial Topaz of this color would be $2,000 a carat. The Imperial Topaz comes from Ouro Preto in Brazil. Actually, Rodrigo de Silva is the town where it's mined. But it's the primary source. There is some from Pakistan, but very limited availability, just like this stone. 20 years ago, I didn't see any of this material, never had a stone like this. It's only been the last 15 years probably I've seen stones of this color coming out. And zircon has a great advantage because it has a real high refractive index, which gives you that high brilliance that you don't typically get in most gems. It has a refractive index of 181, which is beyond the ability of the piece of equipment we showed you last week, which was the refractometer. So this is a very bright, brilliant stone. It gives you a diamond-like brilliance in a really unique color. This stone weighs 6.74 carat. Price $15.75. Our price of $11.40. And again, 15% off using the code GEMSHOW4. Nice shape. The antique cushion, very popular these days. I don't know if... Yeah, I have an overall quality rating of 956 on this stone. So it's clean, well cut, and just a beautiful color. Question.
Yes. Curry from Facebook would like to know, I guess this is probably a general question, but as far as, you get these gemstones, you have them in your jewelry, how do you know how they should be cleaned properly? Is there
you can ask us. And it is a concern, because a lot of jewelers that don't deal a lot in colored stones really don't know how to treat stones. So either they're afraid to do anything as far as cleaning them, or they do something wrong, like Tanzanite. We have 2 types of cleaners we use. We use a steam cleaner, and we use an ultrasonic. You actually ultrasonic them, and it loosens up material, and you take the steam, and it blows off everything. But steam, as hot as it is dangerous for Tanzanite and many stones. What happens, that sudden heat shock will cause them to fracture. And I've seen many Tanzanites that have been fractured. I hope everybody's learned by now that you don't steam clean a lot of these stones. I mean, you can do sapphire and rubies and diamonds, and there are quite a few stones there are a few stones you can steam clean, but many stones you can put in the ultrasonic. Most of the Tanzanites we do, although they recommend not ultrasonic Tanzanite, we do it regularly without problem, because the ultrasonic, assuming that you don't let it get real hot, because ultrasonics will get hot and steaming hot, and that can cause damage, but a cold ultrasonic will typically be safe for many stones, but not all. I mean, emeralds you don't want to put in there because they're typically fracture filled, and it can take out the filling. What else? Opals and pearls, and there's a lot of stones you don't want to put into an ultrasonic cleaner, and you just want to brush those with a mild detergent would be typical. And I say that about opal, but you don't want to get Ethiopian opals wet for too long. I mean, you can clean them off and wipe them down quickly, but they'll absorb water, and you're going to lose the color for 2 days to a week. It comes back once it dries out, but you don't want to get those too wet. So wiping them off with a slightly wet cloth is probably the best thing for Ethiopian opals. But most things you just take a mild detergent and a brush and wipe it down. But you can always call us and we'll tell you how to clean things, or if you're having problems getting them clean, you can send them to us, bring them in when we're open, and we'll be glad to clean things because we know what to do for all these stones. And something to be concerned about when you mount them, is having a mounting that you can get to the back of the stone and clean it. Sometimes is a consideration. Doesn't work for all mountings, but the more you can get to the back of the stone, the better you can be off. If you can get a brush in there, you can clean your stone much better.
Thank you.
Okay. Next stone there, Michael. Did I finish this one? I think so. So another fancy color Tanzanite. This is a pink. And again, pinks were the ones that really were extremely high priced. I mean, this stone at times could have been $4,000, $5,000, but now because there has been some stones available, the price is much less expensive. But again, I've seen the availability drop since 2014. I mean, up to 2014, you couldn't buy these stones. If you found them, they were just very, very expensive, and they just hit a pocket of material that changed the availability. But as quick as it's found, it disappears. Thanks. So this is give you an idea of what it'll look like in a ring. Get my little beautiful finger on there. But really beautiful color and really clean, really well cut. Just a very nice stone. You put some diamonds around it and just it makes a beautiful piece. And you've got something that is not slightly rare. It's really exceedingly rare. You won't know anybody else that has one or likely will ever have one. Just a cool stone. Hopefully when we get over there, we'll see more, but, you just can't count on it. This is the kind of thing you buy when you see it because it's likely not going to be there next time. This particular stone, I have an appraised value of $1,080 and $790 on it. 15% off for the Gem Show 4 coupon. Carat 8 is the weight on it.
Up here in the corner. How we doing?
Question.
Yes. Couple questions real quick here. With the pink Tanzanite that we just showed, is that natural pink?
Natural pink, no treatments.
No treatments.
Yeah. These every pink I've seen in that came out of the ground was naturally pink. I don't know what they would heat it from. Nobody's done anything on article-wise, but everything that everybody's ever told me, all these fancy colors are natural. I've seen some pink that I wanted to heat, and I think this would be the case with this because you look at it, I've got a pink that I cut that I thought about heating, but it had an inclusion I thought it would break because it had some of the yellow in it. And I would bet that if we look at this with a microscope, you'll see that yellow. And yellow is typically what you're heating out of Tanzanite. It's what's distorting color. We have a natural color Tanzanite coming up that what it has, it's making it the color it is and not blue or blue-violet, is the yellow color. Because Tanzanites are trichroic typically. The pink is probably dichroic, not trichroic, but the blues in their natural crystal are trichroic. So they're blue, purple, and yellow. We heat them to drive off the yellow. And the pinks I've seen have the yellow in them. And I would assume that if they're pink, and I have one I cut recently that's kind of off pink. And I originally thought I'd heat it, and I still may give it a shot. But anytime there's an inclusion in it, you risk breaking them, and they're valuable enough. You don't want to break them. But if you drive off that yellow, you would probably get a pure pink, would be my assumption. Don't know that's true because I've never done it. But, we drive off the yellow in Tanzanite to make the colors more pure.
Okay.
Okay. That was it?
Yes.
Okay. Next stone is, this is Scapa Light. Scapa Light comes from Tanzania. Really another beautiful yellow stone. This one is another Barian style from Mr. Barian. You can see the brilliance that it produces, so that's why I cut them. They call this a fountaining brilliance. If you look at the outer facets, that's what Basil Watermeyer said. It fountains, it like brilliance in the center, and the brilliance fountains out from it. That's what this style of cutting produces, a really unique and extraordinary brilliance. Why I like to cut it, and it just makes a beautiful stone. Scapa Light is a stone on its own. Similar characteristics as far as hardness and refractive index to quartz, to citrines, but a totally different mineral. First time I started cutting this was back in the early 80s. It was available, and there were some really big stones. And I hadn't seen it since then until just recently. Just in the last several years, I've started seeing Scapa Light again. And it just makes a really lovely stone, relatively good hardness, so you can wear it in a ring or a pendant. And as you can see, it's just a really brilliant stone. So again, this stone, bigger stone, but still could be done into a ring. Let's use the fingerprints on it. But this is clean and just a really nicely cut stone I did just in the last couple weeks. I've had a lot of time to cut, which is cool because it's with all the other things going on in the business, it's hard to find the time to sit down and cut. But that's been the only thing good about this virus is it's given me something to do at home and gotten some things done that I've needed to do for a long time. But beautiful stone and worthy of owning and not expensive for its big size. It's really just, it's going to end up under $50 a carat. It's $1,080. Again, 15% off for the Gem Show 4 coupon code. So this stone probably took me 5 to 6 hours to cut. So it's pretty labor intensive but fun to do. I'm pretty versed at this cut, so relatively easy for me. And next up is another black opal. This we might call semi-black, but really a beautiful colors. Again, high transparency for black opal. Black opal's typically just solid color. Australian material is dark, not transparent at all. Typically, crystal black opal, I gotta assume, would be a pretty rare gem out of Australia. So this has really beautiful colors to it. And kind of unique. I call this a Boomerang Opal, which Australians will probably dislike it because it's not Australian, and I'm calling it a boomerang. But kind of the shape and just a unique piece. Crystal, semi-black, really great colors coming out of it. A full rainbow of color, just clean throughout. Yeah, doesn't have. So the stone weighs 11 karat 30. Praise value will be high on it, about 3,100. and 15% off with the coupon code GEMSHOW4. So really nice opal, make a great pendant. And all these opals I've sold. The customers that come back, just rave about how many comments they get on it. It helps that they're bigger stones, they're seen more easily, and they're just unique and very brilliant colors come out of them. So if you don't want anybody to notice your jewelry, don't buy these opals. But if you really enjoy people appreciating what you're wearing, these are cool pieces. And this, you can set this just plain, just with a chain, and it makes a really unique piece, stands out on its own. So this is probably time to talk about next week's show. I'm a opalholic, as I've told you, and I bought so many opals. I mean, I just continue to buy them. My wife has called me a drunken sailor a few times because I buy so many of them. But it's just unique. It's high quality material that's available, and I know from my past is when you find something that's great and available, you buy it because it's not always going to be available. People are starting to recognize this opal as really something beautiful, and it's selling much better. So next week, with my collection of probably 300 or 400 different opals, I think it's time to sell them. So we're going to have a really good selection. We're going to blow out opals next week, and everything I'm going to be showing is going to be half off. Not 15%. It's just time to turn them. It's available. I need to move stones to buy stones. So we're going to really work at it next week and offer you some great prices. There's going to be some bigger stones and some things that you're going to buy opals for $30 to $50 a carat for some really nice stones. So tune in next week and we'll show you some really special buys on some special opals. This material's only come out since 2008. I first started dealing with them 2012. It's still available, and I can buy the material. So let's turn what I've got, and I'll get to Ethiopia and buy some more. Now, this is a cool one, though. This is a really special stone. Being semi-black, it's much more valued as that. And a question.
Oh. I really didn't want to interrupt you there.
Yeah.
I was starting to get really interested.
Sometimes I ramble, so interrupt me.
Okay, so a couple questions. A few people asked, I'm not sure if we have a video for it, but do you have any videos of you cutting the opal?
Yes.
On YouTube?
An older video. We probably should do some more. But we do have at least one video out there. We have more than that, Michael?
Just one, and it's mediocre. We could do better.
Yeah. It's when we just started doing these videos, and we'll work on another one. But it pretty much shows the process I use, which hasn't changed. So if you go to YouTube and look for opal cutting, anybody know exactly? But on our under More Gems on YouTube, you'll find many cutting videos and a lot of videos we've done, and there will be one on cutting opal that'll describe the same process I use today. Just we'll do another one, and probably the audio will be better and the whole thing will be better. We're getting better at this, but it's a work in progress. Just like our cameras here, we need to upgrade the cameras, but right now, because everybody's doing online stuff, it's hard to even buy a camera these days. So keep watching. We'll keep improving, and the stones will all be great as they are, but our quality of our production will get better.
All right. One last question. With the stones tonight, if somebody's maybe rough on their hands, just a rough person in general, as far as like is there any shapes they should stay away from or that are better for wearing ring, pendant?
probably not the shape so much as how you set them. You can put more prongs on something that's going to protect it more is one way to do it. And of course, if you're really rough, a pendant is a far safer place for you. You won't have problems with a pendant that you might with rings. So how you set it would be more important than the shape. When you have sharp corners, if you don't protect them, you're going to chip them. So that's one thing to consider. If you have sharp corners, you put prongs over the corners. More prongs is going to be better. Setting them lower is going to be better. And that's pretty much what you need to do is work on setting them so you can't hit them as easily.
All right.
Okay, next is natural Tanzanite. Another thing you don't see very often. Not typical because very difficult. Not only rough has been sporadically available out of the country, it does get out, and there has been periods over the last year where you could export 2-gram pieces of rough, which is what this was cut from. I'm not sure what the current situation is, so it's just difficult to get rough material. So this stone being natural, Michael?
Yeah.
I think, okay, go ahead. So this stone is all natural. And it has trichroic colors in it. So we have a sale.
Yes. We actually have 2 sales.
Ah, really?
So this one did just sell.
Okay, cool.
So
That
we can
didn't
still
last
talk
long.
about it.
I can still talk about it. Okay.
But we had another sale as well. It was actually for a stone from a previous show.
Oh, cool.
So,
Which the stones from previous shows, particularly last week, is that what we're running a week on these?
yes.
Okay, so the stones that are available tonight will be available for basically a week and a day. The day after the show, basically a week and a day we run these sales for. So you can buy the stones off of last week's show this week. Tomorrow those stones will no longer be available, but for a week and a day you can buy the previous week stones. What sold from last week?
It was Citrine.
Citrine. Oh, okay.
Yes.
Cool. Okay, thanks for the 2 orders. This one didn't last long, as these naturals don't, because they're generally not available. And I try to cut as many as possible. Some of them just don't show this stronger blue colors in them. They just look brown. You don't get the varying colors that you see in these stones. So I heat them, because I just don't think they're worthy unless you get some of the blues and that diesel-looking color on the ends of them. So once this is heated, the yellow disappears, and you just get the blue and the purple. This will heat to a very fine stone, but as you see, they when the color is right, they sell well as naturals. So I try and do as many naturals as possible. Every natural I've done has sold, so I try to do naturals. I guess I still have 1 natural, but it's a big stone. It's 30 carat maybe from last week. So it's an expensive stone, and naturals and expensive stones have been slow to sell. But anything probably 4 carat and under has sold, and so I'll continue to try and supply naturals. But you just don't see them with the right color very often. These stones that are just brown or single color are just not enticing. But once you get the blues like you get in this stone, as you see, they're very saleable stones. So this one's moved on, so the coupon code's not going to help the rest of you, so we'll move on to the next stone. But it really pretty stone. I have a mounting that I can show you. That was for this stone. And this we did recently with some Demantoid garnets on the side. You know, I've never had Demantoid garnet available in small stones till recently, and so we've been using some of those as accent stones. So this is a variation of a step cut. You can see there's in emerald cut you wouldn't get the two rows of brilliance down the center. So this cut worked real nice. You know, I'd love to see it as a heated stone, but it's cool as a natural, because natural tanzanites, you know, there's no comparison in any other gem that looks like this. They're totally unique, and being natural, you know, these days is exciting to people, and it's done very well for us. And I'll try and supply more naturals. Here's a natural crystal. Might look better on. So this one, I mean, if you heated it, even the bottom would turn blue purple, you know. But this one's included enough you can't heat it. You know, this is a natural crystal. This is again available on Mineral Mike. This is my son's website. He does the crystals. So this has a real nice termination to it, and just really quite a spectacular natural crystal. So go to Mineral Mike for mineral specimens if that's what you're into. And he's got a real nice selection of tanzanite and many other gems. So next up is what we've produced from our B9 Creations machine. Question?
Yep, real quick.
Uh-huh.
As far as the cutting again, you mentioned before that when you see a piece of rough, you can kind of tell what you're going to cut from that. Is there any times where you're like, ooh, I hope I can cut this type of stone cut? Is there a favorite cut that you have?
Is there a favorite cut? Unfortunately, well, yeah, it'd be a round. Portuguese round is a favorite because it always sells. I mean, if I could cut a Portuguese round tanzanite, and every tanzanite, I would sell so many tanzanites. You know, I do sell a lot of tanzanite, but the Portuguese rounds always sell. They're a unique brilliance. Not my favorite cut to do. I mean, it's 161 facets. It's a lot of work, but produces a really cool brilliance that people like. So from the standpoint of being extremely saleable and it's not challenging to do. It's just repetitive. And I'm not a guy that likes repetitive, but when you put dollar signs in front of me, I'm more than willing to do repetitive. So round brilliants are always beautiful. No matter what style of round brilliant you cut, it is remarkably brilliant. It's a beautiful stone. It's usually a sure seller. Most rough material won't cut round brilliants. You know, it's just not the right shape. If you look at most crystals, they're long. You look at this crystal, you're not going to cut a round brilliant out of that unless you cut it this way and cut 10 stones all down the axis. But the color is the right color this direction. So you don't often get the cut stones into round brilliance, but they're real saleable. Diamonds sell best in round brilliance, and many stones sell best in rounds. Wouldn't be my cut of choice. I like a challenge. I like cutting something different shape. And I've learned to get good at it because I can take any shape and produce a cut out of it, just knowing what angles to cut at and how to place facets to get brilliance. You can cut very unusual shapes and get something unique. And people enjoy looking at different cuts. Often they're a little slower sellers because they can't envision what to do with them. Whereas a round brilliant, you can plop into any setting. So unfortunately, round brilliant would be the answer. I like squares. Squares are great. Anything you cut 1-to-1 proportions. So trillions, squares, square cushions are going to produce great brilliance because that's just the nature of cutting. When you have total symmetry, you get more brilliance. So squares are good too, and I've cut a lot of squares lately.
So I thought you were going to say, as a kid, I remember you cutting sailboat cuts.
Yes, and I started doing those by hand, with a stick, and I'd sit in front of the TV and cut a sailboat completely by hand. And I should cut sailboats because people like sailboats, and people that have money have sailboats, and so those did always sell, but I haven't cut a sailboat in a long time. So, no, it's not sailboats, Jeffrey. That may be what you remember as a kid, but yeah,
With your
not
stick,
sailboats.
right?
But I'll do a sailboat again sometime if you like. Yeah.
All right.
Sorry.
One last question about sailboat. No. For Tanzanite.
Next up is our wax we made, so hold on if you're getting tired of our chat here.
Eileen wants to know, when you're grading the color for natural Tanzanite, how do you do that? How do you pick a color grade? Quality grade?
If I quality grade it, just like that Tanzanite, I estimate the color. I've cut enough Tanzanites that I've got a pretty good idea by the depth of its color what it's going to be like. So this Tanzanite was natural, had a 956 because it's high precision cutting, it's clean, and it's going to have a high color. I think I gave it a 900 or better on the color because I know it's going to hit that. It'll probably never be heated. So you're taking my word for it, but thanks for doing that because, but I've cut thousands of Tanzanites and I pretty much know where it's going to end up. It'll vary somewhat, but it's going to be a 900 or better color-wise if we heat it. But it's just pretty as it is, and in heating it probably won't happen, but it's always an option. The person that bought it, if they ever want to heat it, just send it back to me and I'll heat it and give you a violet blue Tanzanite. That'll be beautiful. All the questions?
For now, yes.
Okay. All right. Next up is, in my opinion, the finest highlight on the planet. That's pretty bold statement, but what makes this one special is it's clean, which very few of them are. This material, if I can show you the crystal, take a look at the video first. This is the color change, and what makes this special and so rare is its daylight fluorescence. What you're seeing now is its color in daylight. When you go to a light as where it started, this stone you can see that almost colorless, and in many lights, most light will have some UV. And this stone actually has a decent color in most natural lights, but it goes to this incredible green in daylight. And if you put a UV light on it, which I'll show you, it goes to the Superman kryptonite color. This material was found in 2014, and by 2016 they'd mined it all. We've dealt with the miner for probably since about 2015. We dealt with an intermediary then, and in 2016 we cleaned out the miners of everything they had, and we saw them again this year and bought nothing because there was nothing left. This was in a hill that kind of looked like this microphone, and the layer ran across here, and once they dug through it, there's nothing left. So they mined everything out, and it was really the only source. I don't know it was the only source ever, but the daylight fluorescence is the key. There is highlight opal that will fluoresce in UV light. That's not unusual. Many stones fluoresce in UV light, but having a stone that you could wear and go outside and just be in sunlight and it just glows green like this. I mean, there's no other stone I've ever seen that has a green like this. So that's why it's rare. And the reason this one's special is because it has such a strong green daylight fluorescence. It's clean and it's really well cut. You will, if you look close at this, you'll see the effect of the botryoidal, which I'll show you in the natural crystal. These have a bubbly look, which is botryoidal. And it's very difficult to cut this material. Not only is each crystal typically very small, I mean, getting half-carat stones is difficult. And let me show you what the UV does to it. It's going to blow out the camera. Yeah, I'm not sure how to... But you can see, it gets so bright it just blows out the camera. It's such a vivid green. This is under UV, so what's that? Yeah, it still doesn't. You can look online, and the green is just unreal green. This probably shows it better, but and the special thing about this stone, it's a 2-carat 20, which is a big stone. We once cut a 7-carat, but it wasn't clean, but really an exceptional stone, particularly for its size, one of the biggest in existence. See this? It's just, this glows so bright that it's just hard to picture. I don't know if I can. Yeah. But the green is what you see on the Superman shows, the kryptonite green. And the daylight fluorescence, again, is what makes this material so rare, so special, that it brings the kind of money that you're seeing here. I've never seen a stone this size, this clean, this well cut, from all the material that came out of there. I've cut some carat stones and some smaller stones, but never a stone of this size. You can look online, you'll see 1/4 carat stones for $700, just because it's such rare material. We found fluorescent opal when we were mining out in Nevada. But it doesn't daylight fluoresce. It doesn't have a color like this in daylight. This material is slightly radioactive, so it produces some alpha and beta radiation, generally very low penetration, and most people have stated that it is not a concern as far as the radioactivity in the skin. But if you ever want to mount it in a piece of jewelry, which I'll show you the piece we made, we'd recommend, you put a gold backing on it, make it solid in the back so it'll stop the alpha and beta rays that are coming off it. They're barely over background radiation, but there is some radioactivity to it. It's what causes the color. It's uranol which causes it. It's a uranium isotope that produces this glowing color. So here's the mounting that Chris designed, and we just produced it on this machine back there. It took about 20 minutes. So this is the piece. So kind of a unique look for a unique stone. So, and you can put diamonds on this, keep it plain, pretty much do anything with it, or do something completely different, or just collect this stone because of its rarity. So a special piece, I promise you that it's the best you're ever going to see. Again, it weighs 2 carat 20, 4,800. Is the appraised value, and there is no way to appraise this material. The 7 carat we sold, it went for $7,000. I think it either went to Singapore or Hong Kong, and not a clean stone, just a remarkable stone for its size. We did a video on it. It went viral, and it's been seen maybe 10 million times, we think.
A little high. But
A little high.
5 million.
That's just on ours.
Yeah, that's true. That's just on
Yeah,
YouTube.
that's just on YouTube, and Reddit went viral in one day. 1 million people viewed it. When they told me that, we were out in Tucson, and we put it on the day before we left and got out there, and the next day they said 1 million views. Yeah, right. But it was true, and it just went viral on Reddit, and we've had 5 million views on just our website on YouTube, and you can see that stone on YouTube and this one also. So cool material, may never be seen again. Wasn't before, and many of these stones we see, they come out and just last for a very short time. And that's why our policy is we see something new, we buy as much of it as we can. And just on the assumption, as I've seen over and over again throughout my time in business, there one day, gone the next. All right, on to another rare stone. This is a Sveen. Hard to say. But this material came out of Madagascar. Very little production anymore. While I was in Madagascar, production started sometime 2006, 2008. I spent a lot of time in Madagascar. It produces some really incredible gems. I was talking with a dealer today. She wants to go and wants me to go with her. I want to go back to Madagascar, but Tanzanite is my stone right now, so Tanzania is where I need to go. But Madagascar is the most incredible place I've ever been. And I'm sure my son will have to get there someday because it is the most unique place on the planet. Produces a wide variety of gems. Some of the finest gems I've ever bought have come from Madagascar. Aquas from Madagascar are amazing. We had a few last week. Which are still available now if you want to buy them, because the aqua from there is just incredible. But this Sveen is a big stone, and what makes Sveen so unique is its dispersion. If you look at the picture there, you can see the different colors that are coming out of it. Dispersion. Diamond is well known for its dispersion. You look at diamond in daylight and you see all the flashes of color. but sphene blows away diamond as far as the amount of dispersion it has. So that's what makes this stone special. The mineral is titanate. Sphene is the name for the gem. Sphene is, I believe, a Greek word that means wedge, and that's kind of the shape of the rough. It's wedge shaped, so that's where the name sphene comes from. So this stone, really great brilliance. The color of this is greener than most. Most of it's kind of a brownish, yellowish green color, but this just really has a great color to it. And again, that dispersion is special. Big stone, because they don't often come this size. Most stones are 1, 2, 3 carat. So this one weighs 16.83 carat. Praise value $12,620. Our price is $7,570, and of course you get 15%, and that's well over $1,000 off this stone. And just an amazing stone. Pendant only, not hard enough. This is hardness like Opal. 5.5, so it's really a pendant only stone, but a great size for a pendant, and really throws off some striking colors. That's going to be a very visual piece that's going to show off well in a pendant. So, any other questions that I can answer? We do have a question.
Of course, we got questions. So. And I wanted to bring up again, a few people had sent some messages, asked some questions on here, but we do offer financing online.
Yes.
We have layaway if they call. That's an option coming soon online. And then PayPal and just good old credit card. So
cool. So all options to buy. So, if you have any interest in these stones, we can make it affordable and make it so you can pay, whether it be the layaway, which again, we go up to 6 months. We're, just interested in getting some stones in your hands and getting you hooked on gemstones as we are.
All right. So overwhelmingly, I've never seen so many questions, but about the sailboat cut. Just going crazy.
I think I've done opals. I've got opals that I've cut that are definitely not intentionally. I used to carve the hull out of them, and but sometimes you're better off doing that in gold work. And I have a lot of opals that are sail shape. The Ethiopian opals just tend to be sail shape, and we can make great pendants that look like a sailboat. You do the metal more in the sail shape, and you can get it as accurate as you want, and just do an opal, which opals are really cool as the sail portion of it, just colorful as sails are, and we have many opals that would work as a sail shape, and if it's not the perfect sail shape for you, I'll cut it to the perfect sail shape. So cutting the hulls in them, it was interesting at the time, but I think we're better just doing the sail as the color, and the ship. Let Chris do a design that makes it look like your sailboat, or just a stylized sailboat shape, or whatever you want.
All right. So next week, you said we're canceling the Opal show and just doing all
sailboats. Yeah.
Okay.
It'll be sailboats next year. No, we're having an opal sale. So join us for the opal sale, because I'm taking more off on these opals. I've just looked at it and said it's time to move them, because I have a really good supplier that's gotten better over the years, and he's given me material that's not a problem, because a lot of the opals, particularly in the beginning, I'd have a third of the opals would crack on me while cutting. Now it's maybe 10% of them. And once they're cut, they don't crack anymore. That's the advantage of the Ethiopian. They're just a very durable opal. And so let's move what I've got and buy some more because it's available, and I'd like to turn as much as possible. So we're going to give you some great prices on some opals that I've cut over the years, and I have many, many of them. So there'll probably be 30 stones. We'll probably go through them quicker than tonight. Just going to give you a great price on them and see if we can move some opals. So if you like opals, tune in next week, Wednesday night, 7:05 p.m.
All right. Get to some real
No more sale questions.
No more sailboat questions. Okay, so one, I believe, gentleman wants to know, he just started cutting sapphires and wants to know what the best cut do you think for a sapphire would be?
The one that gives you the most yield, because sapphire is expensive material. No different than others. Most overseas cut ovals, and we're typically set ovals and rounds, but you're really a yield situation. So I wouldn't hesitate to cut any shape. You just have to do unlike they do overseas and cut things too shallow. The problem with a lot of the sapphire rough is just really flat. So it's difficult to get enough depth that you can get full brilliance out of them, but really you have to almost sacrifice to get brilliance. I mean, there are ways of producing a bigger stone and windowing the center a little bit, which sometimes it's acceptable in sapphire because it is such flat material and so valuable that right down the center of the stone, you just have to cut a lower angle just to try and get some size out of the stone. But shape-wise, you cut what the rough says it should be and give you a yield, and just try and do the best you can to get the culet angles right to get a bright stone.
All right. With that really cool highlight that we just showed, James wants to know what the hardness of it is.
Same as other opals, 5.5.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. Ring, pendant.
Yeah, all opals and rings. I mean, it's a soft stone, so you do run risks in a ring, particularly faceted, because faceted shows the scratches more, and that's what you're going to generally do to it. But, an expensive stone like that in a ring, you're taking some risks unless you're very careful. Just the hardness is not there. We do opal rings. I've worn opal rings for years, but they do tend to scratch.
All right. Another question deals with, I'm not sure if you showed a book of the Journal of Gemology. Is that the book you showed or not?
No, that was a gem guide. I do have Journal of... Yeah.
Someone was asking just, it looks like she was about to possibly purchase a subscription. $341 on Amazon, sound about right? For a subscription to that magazine. Any idea?
To Journal of Gemology?
Yeah.
I'm not sure why you buy it on Amazon, but whether it's cheaper than buying directly from the... Gemological Association of Great Britain. Thank you. And that's, I subscribe to it, and we've been in the publication a couple of times. Our Rwanda amethyst ended up on the front cover shortly after they were discovered. So it is a great magazine. You can also subscribe to GIAs, which is Gems and Gemology. Both of those are really great publications. If you really want to learn about what's going on and what's new, those are two great publications. Highly recommend them. Pictures, great pictures in them too. That's why they're expensive. They produce some high quality photographs, and it's just a really high quality publication.
What's the book that comes from? I think it's from Germany. You saw at the Tucson Gem Show.
Lapis.
Yeah. Did you
A
get
little difficult unless you speak German. I don't know if they produce an English version, but I have the Tanzanite one. Is that's from you? Yeah, but in German, I used to go to Germany, and I speak a little German, but sure don't read it. So,
All right.
yeah, the pictures were great.
With the, I'm guessing that he's talking about the machine, the printer beside you.
Uh-huh.
Do you know how much that machine costs?
It was about 11,000.
Okay.
I think and there's some accessory equipment you have to have. I don't know. We probably ended up 12 grand or so. Chris, you know how much this was?
He left.
Oh, he left.
Chris is gone.
Yeah, I think it was about 12 grand. I don't know if there's newer versions. This equipment keeps getting less expensive. When we originally started looking at the stuff, it was $70,000 and then dropped to 20, and these new machines have dropped significantly. It's a very difficult learning curve, learning how to cast the material that it produces. It took us a better part of a year before we really got it down. So you really want to know that you can cast it, because if you can't cast it, it's not worth owning the machine. So.
Okay. As an experienced faceter that you are, do you still get slightly uneven girdles?
No.
Oh, there we go.
It's all about the machine. Uneven girdles is because your machine is not accurate. And that's why the Ultratech is the machine. My Facet does a really good job. I still have to do some adjustments on the girdles, but you really have to get a good eye for knowing that the first girdle facet you have is square. And if it's square, if it's not perfectly square, you're going to run downhill or run uphill as you go around the stone. If it continues to run uphill, you just didn't get it square to start with. But if you're constantly having problems that they're different as you go around, or you never can get them square, I would assume it's your machine rather than you. I can't say that for sure, but my experience in the past has been cheap machine. You just never get things square. You're always fighting it. So that's why you buy a high quality machine to start with, and particularly beginners. Beginners, it's where you're learning how to use a piece of equipment, and you're assuming it's right, but so often it's a machine that's not correct, and it'll never produce a high quality cut, and you're always going to think it's you when it's really much the machine. You work on a high quality piece of machine, and you're probably going to get it right the first time, or you're going to learn over a short period to do it right yourself, and it's not going to be the machine that's causing your problem. So up front, spend the money on a quality piece of equipment, and it'll be much less problems for you down the line, and from the start, more importantly. I can cut on a really crappy machine, and I can do a great cut, but I know how to cheat things, and it's going to take me twice as long, but I can do it. I could do it on a jam peg, which is the most basic piece of equipment. I could cut a stone. I don't want to, because it's going to take me 3 times the amount of time. It's not going to end up as quality a product as it would if I spent the money for a fine piece of equipment. And it's just like the CAD these days, what it compares to older machinery. There is no comparison. It'll produce a perfect piece, and a really good faceting machine can produce a perfect faceting, perfect cut, whereas, your used equipment and a cheaper piece of equipment will never produce a perfect cut unless you're just really exceptional cutter. You can cut on low quality equipment, but you'll finally decide that's not what you want to do. When I learned that a high quality piece of equipment would do what it does, I was amazed. Just the difference from even a good machine to a high quality machine just saves you so much time. You're going to go from 10, 12 hours cutting to having your time with a really quality piece of equipment.
All right. Regarding ruby and sapphire, how much silk is too much to fix with heating?
Don't know. It depends on the source. Silk you can heat out. I don't heat sapphire because it takes specialized ovens because, it takes much higher temperature to heat the silk out. They heat to almost melting. That's up in the 3,000 degrees. So my oven goes to 2,000. So I can't heat silk. I have to send it out to have that done. How coarse a silk you can heat out, I'm really not sure. I don't have the answer for that. You just know that silk can be heated out of most stones.
All right. And another question. I'm not sure if this is the cut or the type of stone, but what's the hardest stone that you've had to cut?
I do know that answer. What is something I quit cutting because I couldn't stand it?
A sailboat.
Well, things that I know are difficult. The soft stones, calcites, and only people that really want to struggle with things cut that. I cut a fluorite recently, which I try not to cut because this stuff just cracks on you. And the one I cut started cracking on me, but I've learned how to deal with that. And I cut a beautiful green, another daylight fluorescent gem from England, which is the fluorites. What's the mine, Michael?
The Rogerly.
Rogerly mine in England does some daylight fluorescent, which goes from a green and it fluoresces bluish in daylight. So I cut one of those recently, and I kind of quit cutting that stuff because it'll just start fracturing on you, and you never get through the stone. You can be 3/4 of the way through it, and you just throw it away because it just didn't hold up. But that stone worked out, and I'll cut another one, do another try at it. Diaspore Zoltanite or Zarite, there are a couple of trade names for it, is also a difficult stone to cut. Kunzite's difficult to cut, and apatite is really a pain to cut. I've got some big ones in my vault. I've got one that'll cut a huge stone, maybe 60, 70 carat, which currently is unavailable, but it's a stone I've avoided because very difficult to polish. I've learned to deal with it, and it's a stone that you have to say, oh, that's good enough. I'm not going to push it because you try and push it and it just scratches worse, and then you got to recut, and it's a difficult stone to cut, but it's a beautiful stone worth cutting. And I will cut them again. That big stone I've got to cut someday because it's worth $100 a carat at least. So it's a $6,000 stone that's just sitting there. But you have to have a very, very clean lap, maybe a new bat lap, or you have to really clean them to get it to polish right. And you'll never get a perfect polish on apatites. I've got some cut, and I will first admit that they're not perfect, but they're as good as they can be. So there are some stones that I avoid, and I'm sure there's others that I've forgotten about because I don't want to think about such things, but you learn over time.
All right. I think that is the end of the questions.
All right, folks. Remember, shop online at MoreGems.com, as well as subscribe to us on YouTube at MoreGems. That's going to be it for us today. I want to thank you all for joining us tonight. Sign up for alerts for when we go live. Also check out our video links and info at the bottom of the stream. Until next time, I'm Steve Moriarty. Keep on gemming.
Bye.